Welcome back to MJ Misadventures. So we finally have the long-awaited results for the MSC Stage 3 versus the RNG Stage 3 effectively. So we're going to go over a few things. I'm going to kind of cover like the data chart that's behind me. And just so everyone's aware, stay to the end. I'm going to put that actually in the end of the video for about 10 or 15 seconds. That way you guys can pause it and actually look at it and visually get some idea as well. I'm going to cover all the numbers, but that way you have something to actually reference. You will see me looking down quite a bit just because I have to look at all the notes for everything. So, alrighty. So we're going to cover the data chart that you see behind me, the RPMs at 30 and 60 miles an hour, as well as kind of like we did before. The general impressions on both kits, and then we're going to kind of go into the final thoughts, and then wait to the end because I'm ultimately going to, I guess you would say, label a winner in this video, because there has to be one kit that's better than the other in general senses, at least for my application. So I'm going to go over those. So for MSC, we achieved a 72 mile an hour top speed at 7,850 RPM at the top speed. RNG, I received a top speed of 68 miles an hour at 8,200 RPM. Going into the belt temps, I know that was a hot topic. I'm not going to get into that. I know RNG and MSC both covered this topic in a separate video on their own. The belt temps that I received were 168 degrees for RNG, and that was at 27 degrees this morning when I was filming that, and then 154 degrees for MSC, and it was 33 degrees when we filmed that. I know another thing that was we spoke about before was the initial takeoff speed, how you have to rev the engine to start moving with that, and I'm going to cover a little bit of that in the end as well. Both kits were pretty much right at that 2250, 2200, 2250, right in that ballpark on both kits. So that wasn't anything, can't really say one won or one lost. They both were pretty much right there. Now, when it comes to the 0 to 30 times, I'm going to cover the stage 1 kits for both parties and the stage 3 kits as well. So that way you kind of have those reference numbers there, but to actually see a real improvement. So to recap, the stock one ran a 17.74 quarter mile with a 3.6 0 to 30 time as an average. So with the MSC Stage 1 kit, I received a 2.54 0 to 30. With the Stage 3, it actually cut it down even more to a 2.36 0 to 30 time. Quarter mile times were at Stage 1 was a 17.32, and with the Stage 3 it went down to a 17.04, so 3/4 of a second faster, and a little bit over, I think it's about a second, second and a half, or just about a second and a half faster on 0 to 30, which rather impressive. I mean, that's a tough feat to pull off constantly. Now, when it comes to RNG, the 0 to 30 in their Stage 1 kit was a 2.86 second 0 to 30. The Stage 3 was 3.16. It slowed down considerably, which I found to be kind of interesting. Then when it came to the quarter mile, the Stage 1 was an 18.08, and the Stage 3 was an 18.36. So again, slowed down again. So those were kind of interesting numbers to note over and over with the same kits. And to be clear, all the numbers, I know some people were kind of questioning why I tested asphalt versus trail and stuff. As I've said to both parties, I wanted to test what the clutches do, not the traction of my tires. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I agree we're 90% of us are riding these on the trail, but I wanted to put it in a number that you guys can actually use and see some performance gains, not just it felt good. The next part, we're going to do the 30 mile an hour and 60 mile an hour cruise speeds and cruise RPMs. MSC at 30 miles an hour was 52.50. At 60, it was 73.50. The RNG kit at 30 miles an hour was 59.50, and at 60, it was 7,700. So those are two things that to kind of point out on those. I know the whole argument again, as well as the RPM. Both, again, RNG and MSC have covered those portions, so I'm not going to recap what they've done. Those guys know what they're doing. Now I'm going to kind of cover the smoothest of engagement, because it was kind of interesting comparing these two springs. And, I'm going to cover why this spring is different in the end, just so everyone's aware of why it's different. The smoothest in takeoff, the RNG kit definitely was, in the Stage 1 kit, was definitely a little bit smoother. But the MSC kit took probably 80% of that initial engagement feel that you feel out. So definitely still smooth, but it's not as buttery smooth. And I'm sure they have a kit designed for that. I just didn't get it. The trail kit's meant for a little bit more on the performance side. But oddly enough, going with the Stage 3 kits, or the Helix and the secondary spring, the MS or RNG kit actually got rougher. And oddly enough, the MSC kit actually got smoother, oddly, in between both of those two kits by going to Stage 3. They both have pretty much the same engagement point, but I would say that the RNG spring with the Stage 3 kind of takes about 80% of that clunk or that initial engagement feel out, where the MSC kit takes probably 85-90% out, slightly smoother. So that's that. Now, the next part that I kind of want to cover as well is the mid-range feel. Just how does the machine pull when you've got it and you're running it across, a field, or just kind of getting on it in the paths and on the trails and whatnot. And I've discussed this with both parties as well for MSC and RNG. I definitely have to say this MSC kit, both in Stage 1 and in Stage 3, has a lot more mid-range oomph, I guess you could say. It feels a little stronger in the mid-range. The RNG kit doesn't feel bad, but it doesn't have that performance that I would expect to feel out of a Z950 HO. And just for reference, all these tests were done on a 2022 CF Moto Z950 HO Sport with a 30-inch tall tire. The only modifications other than that is just a sound bar behind the head. And that's it. You can actually see that in videos below. But that's the only modifications. No tunes, no nothing. Nothing else has been done to this machine. It is just the tires and that sound bar. So that's definitely that point. I will say that the MSC kit definitely has a lot more mid-range punch to it over the RNG kit. Now, I know a lot of people, and another thing before I go too far away from that, because I will forget, another thing to note, originally when this test was conducted, the agreement was that both parties would test at the B1 position in both secondary spring positions. So B1, pretty much, that way it's stock to stock. Originally, both parties agreed to that, and then RNG came in after and said, hey, I can't run B1, I have to run C1. I did clear that with MSC. They said that's fine if that's how he needs to run his kit, even though the agreement was to run B1 between both parties. But it doesn't seem that had much of a performance advantage, so it's pretty much okay, I guess, is the way they said. Another thing I'm going to cover, a lot of you guys have seen this red spring here. Real pretty spring. That spring was sent to me, and so was this spring here, this yellow spring. Both of these are RNG springs. The red spring was told not to use it because it did have some issues with it. These are, I guess, the first batch or something was going on with them. and these were not to be used. And he did request that I use it just because it is a better looking spring on camera. It does kind of look a little nicer, and it does. But one of the things that I want to cover in this video is, just general thoughts of what I've seen. And this is something that I found very interesting. I don't know how well you can see that, if the camera's picking that up pretty well. Or if you can see kind of the insides of that spring. I don't know, is that visible to everybody? Sorry, Jamin's gonna grab it here and help me out. She's a little closer to the camera. There's a lot of wear on this paint that is pretty much worn off. And that is all within about 20-25 miles. And both springs were ran about the same distance, just to be fair. There's a lot of wear on that spring. And there's a lot of paint and a lot of raw steel that I'm seeing. And it might be hard to catch in the camera. But there's a lot of wear in that spring in the paint department. And I did spend quite a bit of time cleaning all this paint out of my CV belt. Or out of the actual belt cover and all the metal, and just cleaning it all out, because I don't know if that'll hurt it, but it's something that I don't assume should be in there. So I removed it myself to make sure it was clean. That is a lot of wear for 20 miles in my opinion. Now, I don't know if that's like a break-in thing. It's just breaking in and then, it's not going to do it anymore. I don't know. But that was something that I had to do a lot of cleaning up on. And another thing to add, and again, I don't want this to be a knock against them. I don't think it's so much a knock. I just feel that it was something to share. RNG had sent me 2 sets of springs, an 18-gram set and a 20-gram set. I tested both to see what gave me the best performance number-wise consistently. And the 20 grams ultimately gave me that. And I know we talked about the weights. And to be fair, all of the weights that I weighed them 3 times to verify the accuracy of the number. I didn't want it to just be, drop one weight on. So I weighed all 6 weights. And, constantly, put it on, zero the machine, or zero the calculator or scale, put it back on, and the same thing over and over and over again to verify the accuracy. 5 of his weighed 19.9. The other one did weigh exactly 20 grams on the dot. The other ones, the MSC ones, kind of switching over to the MSC side. And since I'm already on the weight side, I'm going to cover that now just to be simple. All the weights that MSC had sent did come in at exactly 22 grams. I mean, on the dot, every one of them, and still tested them 3 times as well to verify that I wasn't getting anything off, because these gram calculators, you can breathe on them, and at least the one that I have will throw a number. So covering the weights, or the springs, sorry. So I actually do need to add this in there, and I don't think this is common knowledge to anyone else, and it's something that should be added in. These springs are these springs are a stainless steel spring. And so is this, from what I've understood, and that's from Vati Verico. And the interesting thing that I found with that is, this spring, the advantage, I guess you could say, of stainless versus this is, you go through paint, you're down to raw steel. It can cause some issues down the road. I'm not saying it will, but I'm just saying that it could. Where with stainless steel, if you do scratch it, you're just going to another layer of stainless steel. It's just, it's part of it. It's hard to tell on this video, but I don't know if you can see the shadowing. Jamin, can they see that on the screen there, just so that way they can get a clear image? She's gonna move that up. There is absolutely zero wear on that, on any part of the spring. I've searched over it with a fine-tooth comb, a flashlight, cameraed it. I've tried to find any way I could find to see if I could find a nick in that spring even, and I didn't find a thing. Now on this shim, and it's not a bad thing, the only thing that I could find mark-wise is where it made contact right there, if you can see that. Jamin will grab it and do the same thing again. So that is definitely something to note. That's just the contact mark of where this spring rests up against this little shim. So that was one thing that was rather impressive. There wasn't anything left behind with this. And I think that shows the quality of Vativerco and it as well, to give that nod towards MSC. Those guys and Vativerco spent a lot of time testing and tuning these springs and getting them dead nuts on. And this isn't a knock against RNG. Maybe his new style of powder coating is better than the old. I don't know, but I did find that to be a bit of an issue to me. That's a lot of paint missing from the inside, and we can probably post some pictures or something like that towards the end of the video. Maybe like right after we pause the video, so that way you guys can see the actual chart behind me, because I know that was a lot of numbers quickly. So that is another thing. The final thoughts on the kits. I think both kits have a place. I do. After testing both, and I've learned a lot, and I think that was kind of the goal of this video, was to give everyone in the CF Moto community that's new or just doesn't know which direction to go, maybe give them a kind of a basic guide to discuss with MSC, RNG, or both even. Call them up and say, hey, I've got questions. I want to know about X, Y, and Z. And because my riding style is different than yours as well, it's different from even Jamin's right behind the camera right now. It's different between all of us. And that doesn't mean that, one kit's bad versus another kit, but it does show the difference in, just kind of, I think the quality, the R&Ding, and the time they've spent. I think, Stingray makes a great product. I have nothing against either product, RNGs, Stingrays, or MSCs or Vativercos. They're all a good product. But I think for the level of wear that I received on one versus the other, I kind of give the nod or a little bit more of a win towards MSC with this one. And I guess that's kind of going to go into my final thoughts, my closing on this video. I drove both machines. Obviously, there's parts of it that were done on film. There are parts of it done just driving around the farm here where I live, just kind of ripping across the fields and playing around and just goofing off. And there wasn't a position at any point that I was like, the RNG kit felt better. The MSC kit legitimately, and this is something I've discussed with RNG, I was very much talked to him, and the same with Steve. I very much love the way this kit feels, at the Stage 3 especially. It hits like a freight train, and it has power everywhere I want it. And I did speak to them about my top speed as well, kind of as a final thing. They're saying that even with what I've done testing wise, ultimately my tire is actually on the cusp of needing that Stage 3. It can use it, but it's not a necessity yet, but it does give it some ability to go up in the future, such as if I add a tune or a larger tire. They're saying you can probably achieve even higher speed, which is phenomenal for a kit that has really good bottom end, has really good, really strong mid-range, and then also still has top end. That is something for me. I like top end, that 40 to 60 mile an hour range running, and then still doing some trails. So overall, I think at the end of the day, I'm gonna label this MSC kit as the winner. They have got it just flat dialed in. It performs phenomenally in every measurable test. And to be fair, I know this was a comment that was made. Why am I comparing the trail kit to the Stingray Helix? Because that's more of a MSC mud kit. And I did talk to RNG, and I offered him, I said, do you want me to get MSC to send me a mud kit then? That way I can compare it in that aspect. And he said, no, just test it the way we're doing it. So I said, okay. So I think that's something to be said with the kit. The only thing that I noticed that was different with the RNG kit was it liked to spin the tires, instantly off the line, but then it kind of fell down a little bit. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if that's this Helix or these springs or the weights. I know there's a whole gamut of information there to pull through. But I just felt that the MSC kit, I mean, still has phenomenal bottom end, and then just, I mean, has power everywhere. Whether you're a mud guy, a trail guy, a sand guy, a desert guy, either one of them, I think that the MSC kit just flat out works better. It was, I mean, I know it's on my chart, at least it's showing a cooler belt temp constantly, so I have to assume that that is applying, you know, a lower belt temp to everything. So that's definitely helping out. And again, everybody, I know that's a lot of information to shove in probably a 20-minute video. I think it is right now. I'm not sure. You know, that's a lot of information to shove into a 20-minute video and give everybody the overall. I think at the end of the day, though, I definitely appreciate everybody watching, and I appreciate all the comments below. And if you guys have questions, please put them down below, because at the end of the day, you know, either Joel or, you know, someone at MSC will get back to you if you have a more direct question. You know, it's more specific about something I didn't cover necessarily, and I'm sure RNG will do the same. But overall, at the end of the day, for my driving style, my habits, my riding, the way I like to ride, this is ultimately the kit. And I don't have the Helix because it's still in the machine. This is the kit that's going to stay in my machine. The MSC kit absolutely crushed it for me, and they just got it dialed. So, alrighty guys, well, until the next video, and we are working on a few new videos, maybe some new products coming out here in the future that are starting to make their way to the market. And so I'm hoping to actually get on some of those as well. But until the next video, again, remember to like, share, comment, subscribe. You know, all the normal jazz that they tell you to do. You know, definitely like, share, and subscribe. And I appreciate you guys taking the time. And hopefully this gives everybody, like I said, a general information to help everyone make that decision when they get home, or when they decide to order either kit, whichever one they choose to buy. So again, thank you, and I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.